Christopher Ferdinand Durang is an American playwright who's known for his absurdly comedic plays that were quite popular in the 80s. Laughing Wild, one of his most popular works, is one such play. The story revolves around a day in the life of two separate characters, one an aggressive and mentally unstable woman, the other a passive-aggressive man with low self-esteem whose attempts at positive thinking tend to fail him. I will be doing an interpretation of Act 1, which details the woman's day and the problems she encounters. I want to talk to you about life. It's just too difficult to be alive sometimes, isn't it? And to try to function? There are all these people to deal with. I tried to buy a can of tuna fish at the supermarket the other day, and there was this person standing right in front of where I wanted to reach out to grab the tuna fish can. So I waited a while to see if they'd move, and they didn't. They were looking at tuna fish too, but they were taking a real long time on it, reading the ingredients on each can like they were a book or something. A pretty boring book if you ask me, but nobody has. So I waited a while, and they didn't move, and I couldn't reach the tuna fish can. And you know, I thought about just asking them to move, but then they seemed so stupid not to have sensed that I needed them to move, that I had this awful fear it would do no good at all. They'd probably look at me and say something like, "Well, move him already, you nagging wench," and then what would I do? So I started to cry out of frustration quietly so as not to disturb anyone, and still, even though I was softly sobbing, this stupid person couldn't grasp that I needed to get by them to reach the goddamn tuna fish can. People are so insensitive, I just hate them. And so I reached over with my fist and I wrote it down real hard in his head and I screamed, "Would you kindly move, a-hole?" And he fell over and looked really startled, and some child nearby started to cry, and I was still crying. And I couldn't imagine making use of the tuna fish cans now anyway. So I shouted at the child to stop crying. I mean, it was drawing too much attention to me. And I ran out of the supermarket and I thought, I'll take a taxi to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I need to be surrounded with culture right now, not tuna fish. But you know how hard it is to hail a taxi. I waved my hand, and then this awful man who came to the street after I was there waved his hand, and the taxi stopped for him just because he saw him first. And the injustice of it made my eyes start to well with tears again. So I lost that taxi. So I waved my hand again, and the next 3 taxis were full. And then this other taxi started to get near, and this woman with groceries came out and started to hail it. And so I went right over to her, and I said,
if you're in the building, you're needed out front of the high school. John Kearney, you're needed out front of the high school. Thank you.
And so I got into the taxi, and I said, I want to go cross down to the Metropolitan Museum of Art. I need to be surrounded with culture and quiet and things of value. I've had a terrible time in the supermarket. And then the taxi driver, who was Greek or Muslim or Armenian or something, said, I have to go downtown now. I'm about to get off work. So I thought, I won't even argue. I'll just sit here. And he started to shout at me obscenities and so on, and I thought, well, at least I'm sitting down. Maybe eventually he'll decide it's just easier to take me to the Metropolitan. Although I started to think maybe I didn't want to go there anyway. I was hungry for starters. Maybe a movie with popcorn and Diet Coke and those chocolate-covered ice cream balls. What are those called? They're delicious, and they cost about $2.50 in the movie theater, which is ridiculously expensive. But then what movie would I see? And then he suddenly pulled his taxi out in the traffic in a big hurry, made me sort of lurch in my seat. And I shouted out, I've changed my mind, I want to see a movie. And before I could ask him for recommendations, he said he was taking me to the police. And I thought, yes, but isn't he in the wrong refusing a fare? Still, I didn't think going to the police was worth it as a risk. So when he stopped at a stoplight, violently I might add, there's probably something wrong with my back. I could sue, but litigation is so complicated, and here I can't even afford a can of tuna fish. I opened my door, jumped out, and fell backwards into the gutter. Are you all following this so far? So there I was, lying in the gutter, when this street musician came over to me and asked me if I needed some help. And I said, no, but could you play Melancholy, baby? Which I thought was a pretty funny thing for me to say under the circumstances. And then he asked me if I needed help getting up or if I wanted to stay seated in the gutter. And I thought, I don't know the answer to this question. And so I said with a laugh, I don't know the answer to this question, ask me another one. Which I thought was a very funny thing for me to say, you know. This crazy lady, after she's attacked someone at the tuna fish counter and been assaulted by a taxi driver, so gallant and witty in the midst of unspeakable woe. What is that line from Beckett? Laughing wild amid severest woe. So then I said with another wry smile, I am laughing wild amid severest woe. And he looked at me blankly and I said, I am laughing wild. And since he still didn't seem to get it, I threw back my head and let out this enormous, frightening laugh that I do at parties. book is Bleak House. Not the book, but the title. I haven't read the book. I've read the title. The title sounds the way I feel. And my most recent accomplishment was getting up out of the gutter after I was attacked by that crazy taxi driver. I feel terribly sorry for my doctors. My doctors get exhausted listening to me. I can tell they feel my words are charging out of my mouth and trying to invade their brain cells, and they're frightened. Understandably. So that's why I try to practice being quiet from time to time. Here, let me be quiet for you a second. You see, you need that rest too, don't you? Here is the key to existence. When I tell you this, you will know how to run your lives. As soon as I tell you the key to existence. Are you ready? Are you ready for me to tell you? Oh dear, I've built it up too much and it's really not all that significant. Always breathe. That's the basis of life, breathing. That's basically the basis. If you don't breathe, you die. The other major thing I've learned is, well, I've forgotten it, so it couldn't have been too significant. Let me try to summarize what I've told you, and then I'll remove myself from your presence. I had trouble buying tuna fish. I got in an argument with a taxi driver. My favorite book is Bleak House. I like sweet musicians sometimes, and I have a frightening laugh. Well, I've covered everything I intended to. Goodbye, I love you. Of course, that's a lie. In fact, I hate most of you and think you're first-class fools. I probably don't like any of you. I'm terribly sorry. I really can't leave you that way. Goodbye, goodbye. I hope your lives are better than mine. Laugh, 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 laugh. I'm getting too tired to do the real laugh right now. Laugh, 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 laugh. Laughing is a tonic. So forget crying. Cry and you cry alone. Laugh and you cry alone later. And remember, always breathe. Even if I stop, you keep breathing out there, okay? In and out. In and out. That's it, yeah. What was the time? What was the time?
7:24.